Good evening. Tonight, we're going to explore something quite ordinary, yet extraordinary in its own quiet way. We're going to spend time in a Victorian household, not during a grand ball or an important dinner party, but on a Monday morning. Laundry day. Take a moment to settle in. Perhaps adjust your pillow. Find a comfortable position. Let your shoulders relax. There's no rush tonight. No urgency. We have hours ahead of us, and we're going to spend them observing one of the most ordinary activities imaginable: the washing of clothes, the cleaning of linens, the routine domestic labor that consumed days of effort every single week. You might find yourself wondering why we would spend our time discussing something as mundane as washing clothes. Why focus on such an unremarkable task? But that's precisely the point. History isn't just made up of battles and coronations, of grand speeches and dramatic moments. History is also made of the ordinary, the everyday, the repetitive tasks that filled the hours and days of billions of people who came before us. These ordinary tasks, the ones that leave no monuments, no plaques, no grand commemorations. These are the tasks that actually occupied most of human experience. Most people who have ever lived spent most of their time not doing extraordinary things, but doing necessary things, ordinary things, things like washing clothes. In our modern world, we place our clothes in a machine, add detergent, press a button, and walk away. An hour later, our clothes are clean. We might not even think about it. It's automatic, background. Something that happens without much conscious thought or effort. We might feel mildly annoyed if we have to sort the laundry or fold it afterward. We might complain about having to do laundry at all. But for our Victorian ancestors, for people living just 130 or 40 years ago, cleaning clothes was an undertaking, a process, a ritual that consumed a nice days and required significant planning, physical labor, and skill. Monday was washing day. Tuesday was ironing day. Wednesday was for putting everything away and mending. 3 full days, every single week, devoted to keeping clothing and linens clean. Imagine that for a moment. 3 days, every week, 52 weeks a year. That's more than 150 days per year spent on laundry, nearly half the year. And this wasn't light work. This wasn't standing at a machine pressing buttons. This was physical labor, carrying water, heating water, scrubbing, wringing, lifting, bending, standing in hot, steamy rooms for hours on end, hands in harsh chemicals, breathing humid air thick with soap and steam. For the women who did this work, whether they were servants employed in large households, or housewives managing their own homes, or professional laundresses taking in washing to earn money. This was a major part of their lives, a major expenditure of time and energy and physical effort. Week after week, year after year, from the time they were young enough to help with simple tasks until they were too old to manage the heavy labor anymore. Tonight, we'll walk through this process together, slowly, carefully, with attention to each small detail. We'll observe every step of the washing process, the preparation, the sorting, the treatment of stains, the boiling of whites, the gentle washing of colors, the handling of delicate items, the scrubbing of work clothes, the rinsing, the wringing, the drying, the ironing, the putting away, the mending. We'll take our time with each step. There's something rather soothing about understanding how things were done. The methodical nature of it all. The way each step led to the next. The patience required. The steady rhythm of work. The repetition. The routine. The same tasks done in the same order, week after week, creating a rhythm that structured time and gave shape to the week. You might notice that your breathing is slowing down as we begin. That's good. Let it slow. Let your body relax. There's nothing urgent happening in our story tonight. No crisis, no drama, just work. Steady, patient, methodical work. The kind of work that requires attention and skill but not excitement. The kind of work that can actually be quite meditative in its own way. The same motions repeated over and over. The same processes followed each time. A rhythm, a pattern, a routine. Victorian society was very much structured around routines. Each day of the week had its particular tasks. Monday was washing day, almost universally. Tuesday was ironing. Wednesday was mending. Thursday was market day. Friday was cleaning day. Saturday was baking day. Sunday was rest. This structure provided order. It meant everyone knew what should be happening on any given day. The rhythm was predictable. Comforting even, in its own way. Tonight, we're focusing on Monday, but we'll follow the laundry through Tuesday and Wednesday as well, because the washing process didn't end on Monday. It was a 3-day cycle. Each day had its own tasks. Each day contributed to the overall goal of keeping the household's linens and clothing clean, pressed, and in good repair. We'll be spending most of our time with a laundry maid in a middle-class Victorian household. Not a grand aristocratic mansion with multiple servants, but not a poverty-stricken home either. A comfortable middle-class household. Perhaps a doctor's family, or a prosperous shopkeeper. The kind of household that could afford to employ 1 or 2 servants, but not an entire staff. The kind of household that was quite common in Victorian cities and towns. Our laundry maid. We'll call her Mary, though her name could be anything. Mary is responsible for all the household washing. She's probably in her 20s or 30s. She's been doing this work since she was young, so she knows the processes well. Her hands are work-worn, reddened from constant exposure to water and harsh soap. Her arms are strong from lifting heavy, wet laundry. Her back aches most evenings from bending over wash tubs all day, but she takes pride in her work. She knows how to get collars perfectly white. She knows which treatments work for which stains. She knows how to iron a shirt so it looks crisp and professional. She knows how to make the household linens gleam. This knowledge is valuable. A good laundress was a valued servant. Poor laundry work could lead to dismissal, but excellent work brought job security, and perhaps even slightly higher wages. So settle in. Get comfortable. Let your mind slow down as we then step back in time. Not to witness anything dramatic or exciting, but simply to observe the quiet labor of an ordinary Monday in a Victorian home. The kind of work that happened week after week, month after month, year after year. The kind of work that left no grand monuments, but kept society functioning all the same. The kind of work that millions of women did, and that almost no one remembers now. We remember the queens and the inventors, the writers and the generals. But we forget the laundry maids. We forget the housewives. We forget the professional laundresses. We forget the millions of women whose labor kept households running. kept families clothed in clean garments, kept society functioning. Tonight, we remember them, not with drama or excitement, but simply by observing their work, by understanding what they did, by recognizing the skill and effort involved. Let's begin our Monday morning. The sun hasn't risen yet. The house is quiet. Most of the family is still asleep. But in the servants' quarters, Mary is waking up. It's 4 a.m. Laundry day is beginning. The house stirs before dawn. In a middle-class Victorian household, Monday morning means laundry day, and laundry day begins early, very early. Sometimes as early as 4 a.m, while the sky is still dark and the streets are quiet and empty. The city or town around the house is still sleeping. No carriages rattle past on the cobblestones. No vendors call their wares. Just silence, darkness, and the beginning of the week's hardest work. The laundry maid, Mary, let's call her, wakes in the cold darkness of her small room. Perhaps it's in the attic, under the eaves, where servants typically sleep. Or perhaps it's a small room off the kitchen. Either way, it's cold. Victorian houses were rarely heated upstairs, and servants' quarters were especially cold. Her breath might form small clouds in the air as she sits up in her narrow bed. There's no time for a leisurely morning. No time to linger under the blankets, even though they're warm and the room is frigid. The work ahead is substantial. It will take most of the day. Sometimes it stretches into the evening, especially in winter when drying is difficult. And this is only the first day of a process that will continue through Tuesday and into Wednesday. Mary swings her feet out of bed. The floor is cold, shockingly cold. But she's used to it. This is every morning. This is life in service. She feels for her stockings in the darkness. Maybe there's a candle providing a tiny bit of flickering light, but probably not yet. Candles cost money, and there's no sense wasting them when she can dress by touch and memory. She pulls on her stockings, then her oldest dress. Not her good dress, which she wears on Sundays, and for any task that might bring her into contact with the family. No, this is her laundry dress. A dress that's already stained and splashed from previous Mondays. A dress in a dark color, brown or grey or deep blue, that won't show new stains as readily. The fabric is sturdy, practical, chosen for durability rather than appearance. She buttons the dress with fingers that are already a bit stiff from old work injuries. Her hands hurt more on cold mornings. The constant exposure to water and harsh soap over the years has left them perpetually reddened and chapped. But she ignores the discomfort. There's work to do. Over the dress goes an apron, a large, practical apron that covers most of her front. This will protect the dress somewhat, though it will still get soaked. Everything gets soaked on laundry day. By midday, she'll be damp from head to toe. Not just from splashed water, but from the steam that will fill the kitchen, condensing on everything, including her clothes and hair. She ties her hair back tightly, very tightly, pins it firmly. Then she covers it with a cap. This is essential. Steam and soap will make everything damp and unpleasant otherwise. Loose hair would get in the way, would get wet and hang limply around her face, would be a nuisance. Better to pin it away securely at the start. Mary lights a candle now. Just a small tallow candle. Cheaper than wax. The flame is dim and flickers easily, but it provides enough light to see by. She carries it downstairs, moving quietly so as not to wake the family. The house is silent, except for the creak of floorboards under her feet. Everyone else is still asleep. They'll sleep for hours yet. But the servant's day begins now. She makes her way to the kitchen. In a larger house, she might go to a separate wash house or scullery. Some wealthy households had dedicated laundry buildings set well apart from the main house. This kept the steam, the smell, and the general mess away from the family's living spaces. The laundry building might have multiple coppers, dedicated drying rooms, extensive equipment, but that's for the wealthy, for large estates, for houses with multiple servants. In a middle-class home like this one, the washing happens in or near the kitchen. This means the kitchen will be transformed for the entire day, taken over completely by laundry activities. Steam will fill it. Water will splash everywhere. The normal functions of cooking and food preparation will be pushed aside or relegated to minimal activities. Perhaps cold meat and bread for lunch. Nothing elaborate. The kitchen belongs to laundry today. Mary sets down her candle and immediately begins the first task. The fire. Even before the washing can begin, even before water can be heated, the fire must be built. And this isn't a small fire for cooking breakfast. This isn't a modest fire to heat a kettle for tea. This is a substantial fire. A fire that needs to burn hot all day. A fire that needs to heat enormous quantities of water. She kneels by the stove or fireplace. Her knees press against the cold stone or brick. She can feel the chill through her skirt and petticoat. The fire from yesterday has died down completely. Only cold ashes remain. Grey. Lifeless. She takes a small shovel and carefully clears these ashes away, setting them aside in a metal bucket. These ashes won't be wasted. Nothing is wasted in a Victorian household. Later, perhaps this afternoon or tomorrow, these ashes will be scattered in the garden. Ash contains potash, potassium carbonate, which is beneficial for soil. Some households even saved ash to make lye, which could be used for soap making or for particularly stubborn cleaning jobs. But that's not today's concern. Today, the ashes are simply cleared away to make room for a new fire. Mary arranges kindling in the fireplace or the stove. Small pieces of wood, dried twigs. A few pieces of coal, perhaps, though coal is expensive and might be saved for the sustained burning later. She might use some paper if any is available, but paper is precious and not often wasted. Most kindling is wood. Small sticks that will catch easily and burn hot enough to ignite larger pieces. She arranges the kindling carefully, not haphazardly. There's a skill to building a fire. Air must circulate. The pieces must be positioned to catch from each other. Too tight and the fire will smother. Too loose and it won't sustain itself. She's built thousands of fires in her life. Her hands know how to arrange the kindling almost without conscious thought. She strikes a match. This is one of those small Victorian conveniences that we take for granted now. Before the mid-1800s, starting a fire was much more difficult. But now there are matches. Wooden matches tipped with phosphorus and other chemicals. Strike them against a rough surface and they burst into flame. It's almost magical, though Mary doesn't think of it that way. For her, it's just a tool, useful tool, but nothing remarkable. The match flares. She touches it to the kindling. The dry wood catches immediately. A small flame, orange and yellow, flickering. She watches it carefully, ready to adjust the kindling if needed. But the flame grows, spreads to other pieces. The fire is taking hold. She adds slightly larger pieces of wood, still small but bigger than kindling. She adds them carefully, one piece at a time, watching the fire respond to each addition. Too much, too fast will smother the growing flames. The fire needs to establish itself, needs to gain strength. Patience is required. This can't be rushed. The fire grows, the flames become more vigorous, the crackling sound begins, that distinctive sound of burning wood. The heat begins to radiate outward. Mary can feel it on her face and hands. It's pleasant after the cold of the morning, but she knows this warmth will become oppressive as the day goes on. By midday, the kitchen will be unbearably hot, steam everywhere, the fire roaring, the copper boiling. She'll be sweating despite being constantly wet from splashed water. But that's hours away. For now, the fire is just beginning. She adds larger pieces of wood, substantial pieces that will burn for a long time. These will form the bed of coals that will keep the fire going all day. She'll add more wood throughout the day, feeding the fire, keeping it hot. It's hungry work, tending a fire, constant attention. But her mind knows the rhythm of it. Her hands know what to do without much thought. This is work done week after week, season after season. The fire is as familiar to her as breathing. While the fire builds strength, Mary turns to the next task. Water. Laundry requires water. Vast quantities of water. This is perhaps the most physically demanding part of the entire day. Water is heavy, remarkably heavy. A gallon of water weighs just over 8 pounds. A full bucket of water might weigh 20 pounds or more. And today she'll carry how many buckets? Dozens. The water will be used for washing, for rinsing, for heating in the copper. She'll need perhaps 100 gallons or more before the day is finished. If this house has running water, a modern convenience that's becoming more common in cities during the 1880s and 1890s, but is still far from universal, then Mary is fortunate. She can fill containers directly from a tap. Usually a single cold water tap in the kitchen or scullery. This saves considerable labor compared to households without indoor plumbing. But it's still a matter of filling vessel after vessel, carrying them to the stove if they need heating, pouring them into the copper boiler. But many households don't have running water. Not yet. Indoor plumbing is expensive to install. It requires pipes, fittings, connections to water mains. For these households, water must be carried from elsewhere. Perhaps from a pump in the yard. Perhaps from a communal pump down the street, shared by multiple households. In rural areas, perhaps from a well or even a stream. Let's imagine this household has a pump in the backyard. Mary takes a bucket, a wooden bucket with a metal handle, and goes out the back door. The morning air is cold, sharp. The sky is just beginning to lighten in the east, a faint grey showing where black had been. Stars are still visible overhead. Her breath forms clouds. She crosses the small yard to the pump. Her shoes crunch on frost or dew damp ground. The pump stands solid and familiar. She's used this pump thousands of times. She knows exactly how it works. How many strokes needed to bring water up, the rhythm of it. She sets the bucket under the spout and begins pumping. The handle is cold metal. It moves up and down, up and down. The first few strokes produce nothing. The pump needs priming. The water needs to be drawn up from below. But after several strokes, water begins to flow, clear, cold. It splashes into the bucket with a pleasant sound. She continues pumping until the bucket is full, not quite to the brim. That would be too heavy and would slosh out, but full enough. She lifts the bucket, 20 pounds or more. Her arms take the weight. Her shoulders, already a bit sore from last week's laundry, feel the strain. But she's strong. This work has made her strong. She carries the bucket back into the kitchen and pours it into the copper boiler. Then back outside for another bucket. And another. And another. Trip after trip. The light grows slowly in the east. The sky changes from black to grey to pale blue. Birds begin to sing. The world is waking up. But Mary is already deep into her work. Back and forth, back and forth. Her arms growing tired. Her shoulders beginning to ache in earnest. But this is Monday, and Monday means laundry. And laundry requires water. There's no avoiding it. The copper boiler is large, very large. It might hold 30 gallons, perhaps 40 in a larger household. The water level rises slowly with each bucket added. Mary loses count of her trips. It doesn't matter. She'll know the copper is full enough when the water reaches the appropriate level. A mark on the inside, perhaps. Or just experience. She's done this so many times she knows by eye. Finally, the copper is full. The water is cold, but the fire has been burning for perhaps half an hour now, and it's strong. The copper sits over the firebox, or very near the stove, positioned to receive maximum heat. The water will take time to heat. An hour or more to bring such a quantity to the proper temperature. Mary knows this. She can't rush it. The water will heat at its own pace. While the water heats, she turns to sorting the laundry. This task has its own complexity. Different fabrics require different treatment. Different colors must be separated. Different levels of soiling demand different approaches. Everything must be organized before the actual washing begins. The laundry has been accumulating all week. It's been collected daily from throughout the house. Bedroom linens, kitchen towels, personal clothing, everything soiled during the week's activities. It's been stored in a large basket or hamper waiting for Monday. Now Mary empties the basket, spreading the items out so she can see what needs to be done. She begins with the household linens. White items. Bed sheets from all the beds in the house. Pillowcases. Towels for washing hands and faces. Tablecloths for the dining table. Napkins, both everyday ones and the better ones used when guests dine. These will be washed first, while the water is cleanest and hottest. White linens are more than just practical items. They're symbols, markers of status and respectability. Clean, bright white linens demonstrate that the household is well managed, that the mistress of the house keeps proper standards, that the servants are doing their jobs correctly. Dingy, yellowed, or stained linens are shameful. They suggest poverty, poor management, or moral failing. Victorian society was very judgmental about such things. So the white things must be perfectly clean, brilliantly white. This is why they're washed first, in the hottest, cleanest water. This is why they'll receive the most aggressive treatment. They'll be boiled in strong soap. They might even be bleached or blued, whatever it takes to achieve that perfect whiteness. Mary creates a pile of white items. As she handles each piece, she inspects it carefully. Are there any particular stains? A spot of mud on a sheet, food on a napkin, ink on a tablecloth, rust marks on a pillowcase? Each type of stain will need special treatment before the general washing begins. She sets aside any items with noticeable stains. These will receive individual attention shortly. Next, the colored clothing. These must be washed separately from the whites. This is absolutely essential. Colors can bleed, especially in hot water. The dyes used in Victorian fabrics weren't always color-fast. A red petticoat washed together with white chemises could tint everything pink. A dark blue dress could leach color into lighter items. That would be a complete disaster. Ruined clothing, ruined linens, possibly dismissal for the maid responsible. So the colored things form their own pile. Women's dresses in various colors, men's colored shirts, children's clothing. Perhaps some colored bed linens, if the household uses them. These will be washed after the whites, in separate water, at a lower temperature. Then there are the delicate things. This pile is smaller, but requires great care. Lace collars from women's dresses, lace cuffs, fine lawn handkerchiefs, perhaps a delicate muslin dress. If the family is wealthy enough, there might be silk items. A silk blouse, a silk scarf. These items cannot be treated roughly, cannot be boiled, cannot be beaten or scrubbed harshly, or wrung forcefully. They need the gentlest handling, cool water, minimal soap, careful pressing rather than wringing. They form their own distinct pile. Finally, the truly dirty things. This pile might be quite large. Work clothes worn by servants, Mary's own work dresses and aprons stained from kitchen labor and previous laundry days, the gardener's clothes if the household employs one, men's shirt collars, stiff with grime and sweat, children's play clothes, begrimed with the enthusiastic dirt that comes from outdoor activities, grass stains, mud stains, general ground-in soil. These items need the most aggressive treatment. The hottest water, the strongest soap, the most vigorous scrubbing. These will be saved for last, washed in water that's already been used for cleaner things. There's no point wasting fresh, clean water on items this dirty. The piles grow, white, colored, delicate, heavily soiled. Mary arranges them carefully, each pile separate and distinct. The sheer quantity is remarkable. In a household of perhaps 6 to 8 people, there might be 50 or 60 items to wash. Perhaps more. Sheets and pillowcases from multiple beds, personal undergarments, outer clothes, household linens. It all adds up. The morning is advancing now. Perhaps it's 5 o'clock. Perhaps 5:30. The light outside is growing stronger. The household will be waking soon. But Mary has been awake and working for well over an hour. And the actual washing hasn't even begun yet. She turns her attention to the copper. The water is steaming now. Not boiling yet, but hot. Very hot. She can see the steam rising from the surface. Can hear a slight simmer beginning. Good. It's almost ready. She takes a knife and a bar of yellow laundry soap. The soap is harsh, made from lye and tallow strongly alkaline. Effective at removing dirt, but hard on hands and fabric if used carelessly. She begins shaving the soap, cutting thin flakes that fall into a large wooden bowl. The soap has a distinctive smell. Sharp, chemical. Nothing like the pleasant scented soaps used for bathing. Shave, shave, shave. The soap flakes accumulate in the bowl. She'll need quite a bit. The soap shavings curl away from her knife like tiny ribbons. When she has enough, she ladles hot water from the copper over the soap, creating a thick, soapy solution. She stirs it with a wooden stick until all the soap has dissolved. This concentrated soap solution will be added to the wash water to create the cleaning bath. She also prepares washing soda, sodium carbonate. This white powder increases the alkalinity of the water even further, helping the soap work more effectively. It also helps soften hard water, which is important because hard water makes soap less effective. But washing soda is caustic, more caustic than soap alone, more damaging to hands, more likely to weaken fabric fibers if used in excess. Mary measures the washing soda carefully. Too little, and the wash won't be effective. Too much, and it might damage the fabrics. She's learned the right amounts through experience, through years of doing this every single Monday. Everything is ready now. The water in the copper is at a full boil. Steam billows up in thick clouds. The fire burns hot and steady. The soap is prepared. The washing soda is ready. The laundry is sorted into piles, each pile waiting for its turn. Mary takes a deep breath, wipes her already damp forehead with the back of her hand, rolls her shoulders to ease the ache that's starting. It's time to begin the actual washing. Before the actual washing can begin, there are stains to address. Not every item has stains, of course. Some items are simply soiled from ordinary wear. But enough items have particular stains that this step cannot be skipped. It's a necessary part of the Monday morning routine. A regular ritual that Mary performs each week. She spreads a clean cloth on the kitchen table. The table is sturdy, solid wood, worn smooth from years of use. The cloth protects both the table and provides a clean working surface. She brings over her basket of stain removal supplies. These are not the commercial products we know today. No spray bottles. No specially formulated stain removers. Instead, a collection of simple substances that have been used for generations, passed down from mother to daughter, from experienced servant to newly hired maid. Knowledge accumulated over decades, over centuries even. Folk wisdom tested by time. In the basket are various items. A lemon, slightly withered perhaps, but still good enough for cleaning purposes. A small container of salt. A bottle of milk. A jar of fuller's earth. A type of clay that's useful for absorbing grease. Some chalk. A cake of starch. A bottle of vinegar. Each substance has its particular use. Each is effective against certain types of stains. Mary takes the first stained item from her pile. It's a white linen tablecloth, and it has several brown stains that she recognizes immediately. Tea. Very common in a British household. Britain runs on tea, after all, and tea leaves its mark on tablecloths and napkins and shirt cuffs and anywhere it might splash or drip. The tannins in tea create stubborn brown stains that won't come out with ordinary washing. They need special treatment. For tea stains, she needs boiling water. She takes a large ceramic bowl, white porcelain, chipped slightly on the rim from years of use, and sets it on the floor. Then she stretches the stained area of the tablecloth over the bowl, holding it taut. The fabric is pulled tight across the bowl's opening. This positioning is important. It allows the water to work through the stain and drain away, carrying the tannin with it. Mary goes to the copper and ladles out boiling water. Steam rises from the ladle. She carries it carefully back to the table. Then, standing above the bowl, she pours the boiling water directly onto the tea stain. The water falls from a height, perhaps 2 feet. The force of its fall helping to drive the stain out of the fabric. The hot water hits the stain, spreads, and pours through the fabric into the bowl below. Pour, watch, wait. The water in the bowl is distinctly brown. That's the tea being extracted from the fabric. Good, it's working. But one pouring isn't enough. Tea stains are stubborn. She'll need to repeat this process multiple times. Back to the copper for another ladle of boiling water. Back to the table. Pour again. The water furls, strikes the stain, flows through. The water in the bowl is brown again, though perhaps slightly lighter than before. Some of the stain is already gone, but more remains. The process requires patience, repetition. There's no rushing it. Pour, pour, pour. Each time, more of the tannin is extracted. Each time, the stain fades a little more. Mary loses count of how many times she pours. 5 times? 7? 10? It doesn't matter. She continues until the water draining into the bowl runs clear, until no more brown color appears, until the stain is gone, or at least faded to the point where the regular washing will finish the job. Finally, she's satisfied. The stain isn't completely invisible, but it's much lighter. Light enough that boiling in soapy water should eliminate what remains. She sets the tablecloth aside and reaches for the next stained item. This one is a white cotton handkerchief, and the stain is immediately recognizable. Ink. Black ink, probably iron gall ink. The most common type used in Victorian times. It's made from oak galls, iron sulfate, and gum arabic, and it's notoriously difficult to remove because it actually bonds chemically with the fibers of the fabric. Ink stains. Mary sighs inwardly. These are frustrating. They're the enemy of any laundress. A dropped pen, a careless moment, a finger touching paper before the ink is fully dry. And the result is a black mark that might be permanent. Many a good piece of linen has been ruined by ink, relegated to servants' use or cut up for rags because the stain simply won't come out. If the ink stain is fresh, if it was discovered while still wet, there's a chance. Salt, applied immediately, can absorb the liquid ink before it sets. The salt crystals draw the ink out through absorption. But this handkerchief has been in the laundry basket for days. The ink is long dry, set into the fabric, much more difficult to remove. For dried ink stains, Mary uses milk. The proteins in milk can sometimes help lift ink from fabric. It's not guaranteed. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it's worth trying. She pours milk into a small bowl. Fresh milk from this morning's delivery, perhaps, and submerges the stained corner of the handkerchief in it. The white milk surrounds the black stain. She lets it soak. Patience is required. The milk needs time to work. She sets it aside and moves on to other items, planning to check it again later. The next item is a sheet. White linen, part of the household's bedding. There are rust-colored marks near one edge. Rust stains. These appear on linen sometimes, especially items that have been stored damp or near metal. Perhaps this sheet was dried on a line near an iron fence. Perhaps it touched a rusty nail. Perhaps it was stored in a damp cupboard near metal fixtures. However it happened, the rust has transferred to the fabric, leaving orange-brown marks that are quite noticeable on white linen. For rust, Mary uses lemon juice and salt. The combination of acid and salt works to dissolve rust. It's chemistry, though Mary doesn't think of it in those terms. She just knows it works. She takes the slightly withered lemon from her basket and cuts it in half with a knife. The scent of lemon oil rises. Sharp, citrusy, pleasant, compared to the smells of soap and steam. She squeezes lemon juice directly onto the rust stains. The acidic juice soaks into the fabric. Then she sprinkles salt over the wet juice. The salt crystals stick to the damp fabric. Now the stained area needs heat and time. Ideally, this would be placed in direct sunlight. The combination of lemon juice, salt, and sunlight is very effective at removing rust. But it's very early morning. The sun is just rising. There's no strong sunlight available. And even if there were, it's probably cloudy. This is Britain after all. So instead, Mary will use heat from the fire. She takes the sheet over to the stove and holds the stained area near the heat. Not so close it will scorch, but close enough to warm the fabric. The heat helps the acid work on the rust. She holds it there for several minutes. Her arms grow tired from holding the fabric at the right distance. Too close and the linen might scorch. Too far and the heat won't be effective. It requires attention. She watches carefully for any signs of scorching. A yellowing of the fabric. A smell of burning. But she's done this many times. Her judgment is good. After several minutes, she brushes away the salt and examines the stain. It's lighter, definitely lighter, but not gone. She applies more lemon juice, more salt, and returns to the fire. This process will need to be repeated several times before the rust stain is gone. Lemon juice, salt, heat, check, repeat. It's methodical, patient work. While that's warming, she turns to another item. A man's shirt collar, heavily soiled with grease and grime from natural body oils. After a week of wear, collars become quite dirty. The area that rubs against the neck accumulates oil, sweat, dead skin cells. The result is a greasy grey-brown discoloration that soap alone won't remove effectively. For grease stains, Mary uses Fuller's Earth. This is a type of absorbent clay. It's sold in blocks or as a powder. She has some in powdered form in a small jar. She sprinkles the grey-brown powder liberally onto the greasy collar. The powder adheres to the grease. Now it needs time. The Fuller's Earth will gradually absorb the oil from the fabric, drawing it out through capillary action. She sets the collar aside to let the powder work. Later, she'll brush the powder away. Some of the grease will come away with it. She might need to repeat the application. Really greasy items might need 3 or 4 applications before the worst of the grease is removed. But there's no point in putting a greasy item into the wash water. The grease won't dissolve properly. It will just transfer to other items in the wash. Better to remove as much as possible first. Another handkerchief. This one has a reddish-brown mark. Blood. Perhaps from a nosebleed. Perhaps from a small cut. Bloodstains are common enough. They require very specific treatment. The most important thing is that blood must be treated with cold water. Never hot. Hot water will set blood permanently, making it nearly impossible to remove. This is crucial knowledge. Every laundress knows it. Mary takes the handkerchief to a bucket of cold water. Very cold. The water was drawn from the pump just an hour ago and hasn't had time to warm. She submerges the stained area in the cold water. Immediately, the water around the stain begins to turn pink. That's the blood dissolving out of the fabric. Good. But it needs to soak. Needs time in the cold water. She'll change the water once it becomes pink. Then the handkerchief will soak again in fresh cold water. This might need to be repeated several times. Cold water soak. Change water. Soak again. Eventually, the blood will be gone or faded enough that the regular wash will finish the job. But it takes time. And cold water. Always cold water. Her hands are already becoming cold and painful from working with the cold water. But there's no choice. Blood demands cold water. Another napkin. This one with red-brown stains that looked like wine. Red wine, very common, especially in households that serve wine with dinner. Wine stains can be frustrating. They are highly visible on white linen, but they respond to specific treatments if caught in time. Mary sprinkles salt heavily on the wine stain. Salt has a remarkable ability to absorb fresh liquid stains. Even though this stain is dry, the salt might still help. She rubs the salt into the stain with her fingers, working it into the fabric fibers. The salt becomes slightly pink. It's absorbing some of the wine. After a few minutes of rubbing, she brushes the salt away. The stain is lighter but still visible. For persistent wine stains, some housekeepers use white wine to remove red wine. It seems counterintuitive, but something about the chemistry works. However, white wine isn't often available for such purposes. It's too valuable to waste on cleaning. Instead, Mary will try the boiling water method, similar to what she used for the tea stains. She stretches the napkin over a bowl and pours boiling water through the stain. The hot water flows through, carrying some of the wine color with it. She repeats several times. The stain fades gradually. Each stain receives its appropriate treatment. A grass stain on a child's pinafore. She applies a paste of salt and vinegar, letting it sit before rinsing in cold water. A mud stain on a work apron. She lets it dry completely first, then brushes away the dried mud before treating what remains with soap. A grease spot on a table runner. Fuller's earth again, applied and left to absorb. The work is detailed, methodical. Each stain requires assessment. What type of stain is it? What treatment will work? How much time does it need? Mary's knowledge comes from years of experience, from training when she was younger, from watching other laundresses, from trial and error. Some stains yield easily to treatment. Others are stubborn. Some simply won't come out no matter what she tries. There's a rhythm to this work. Identify the stain. Choose the treatment. Apply it. Move to the next item while the first treatment works. Come back to check. Reapply if necessary. Move on. The pile of treated item grows slowly. Each one has been examined. Each problematic stain has been addressed. Not all will come out completely, but they've all been given the best chance possible. Mary checks on the handkerchief soaking in milk. She lifts it from the bowl. The ink stain is maybe slightly lighter. It's hard to tell. Ink is so difficult. She squeezes out the milk and examines the stain carefully. Perhaps it's a bit better. Perhaps not. She decides to treat it again, this time with a mixture of lemon juice and salt, similar to the rust treatment. It's worth trying. Even if it doesn't remove the stain completely, any fading is better than nothing. The rust-stained sheet has been treated multiple times now. She examines it in the growing morning light. The stains are much lighter. Not completely gone, but faded to a pale yellow-orange that will probably wash out in the main wash. Good enough. She sets it aside with the other treated items. The blood-stained handkerchief has been soaking in its third change of cold water. This time, when Mary checks it, the water is only faintly pink. The stain on the fabric is barely visible. The cold water treatment has worked. The blood is gone. She rinses it once more in clean cold water, then wrings it out gently. It's ready for the main wash. Finally, after perhaps an hour of careful work, all the stained items have been treated. Some stains are completely gone. Some are significantly lighter. A few remain stubbornly visible despite Mary's best efforts. But every item has received appropriate treatment. Every stain has been addressed. This preliminary work is essential. Without it, many stains would survive the washing process, barring otherwise clean laundry. The pile of treated item is substantial. Tea-stained napkins, soaked with gallons of boiling water. Grease-marked collars, powdered with fuller's earth. Ink-spotted items, treated with milk and lemon juice and prayers, rust-marked linens, acid-treated and warmed. Each one represents careful attention. Each one represents Mary's skill and knowledge. Each one represents hope that the item will emerge from today's washing completely clean, restored to its proper condition. She gathers the treated items and adds them back to the appropriate piles. White items with the whites, colored items with the colors. Everything organized and ready. The preliminary treatments are complete, and the water in the copper has been at a full rolling boil for some time now. Steam billows from it, filling the kitchen with thick, warm moisture. The fire burns hot and steady. The soap solution is ready. The washing soda is measured out. The laundry is sorted and prepared. Mary takes a deep breath, wipes her damp forehead. The kitchen is already warm and getting warmer. Her hands are red from the cold water and rough from the lemon juice and salt. But she's ready. The water in the copper boiler is at a full rolling boil now. The surface churns and bubbles. Steam rises in thick clouds, billowing upward, condensing on the ceiling, on the walls, on the windows. Every surface in the kitchen is becoming damp. Moisture everywhere. The wooden table feels slightly sticky to the touch. The windows run with condensation. water droplets creating rivulets that stream down the glass. The view outside becomes obscured by the mist on the windows. The kitchen has transformed. What was a cold, dark space just hours ago is now hot and humid. The temperature has risen dramatically. The fire roars in the stove, consuming wood, producing heat that radiates outward. The copper boiler itself is hot, too hot to touch anywhere near it. The metal radiates heat. The water inside is at 100 degrees Celsius, boiling vigorously, and that heat fills the entire room. Mary's face is flushed, red cheeks, damp forehead. Droplets of condensation gather on her face, on her upper lip, at her temples. She pushes a damp strand of hair back under her cap with the back of her hand. Her dress is already damp in places. The moisture in the air is being absorbed by the fabric. By evening, she'll be soaked through, but for now, it's just damp, uncomfortable, clinging slightly. She wipes her face with her apron, takes a breath of the thick, steamy air. It's hard to breathe in this humidity. The air feels heavy in her lungs. But this is Monday. This is laundry. This is what the work requires. She's done this every week for years. Her body knows how to cope with it, even if it's never comfortable. Mary takes a wooden bucket, one of several she keeps specifically for laundry work, and ladles boiling water into it from the copper. The water steams and splashes. She adds soap solution from the bowl where she dissolved the soap shavings earlier. The soap mixes with the boiling water, creating a thick, slightly yellow, highly alkaline washing liquid. She stirs it with a wooden stick to ensure it's well mixed. This is her primary washing solution. Strong enough to clean, hot enough to sanitize, alkaline enough to cut through grease and soil. The first items to be washed are the white linens. These receive the privilege of the cleanest, hottest water. The water that hasn't yet been used for anything else. This is critically important. White linens must come out bright and clean. They're the public face of the household's cleanliness standards. They demonstrate that this is a well-managed home, that standards are maintained, that the family is respectable. Dirty white linens would be shameful. They would suggest poverty, or poor management, or moral failing. Victorian society judged households by many small details, and the brightness of white linens was one of them. So Mary approaches this task with full awareness of its importance. The whites must be perfect, must be brilliantly clean, must be without stains or yellowing or any hint of dingy greyness. She takes the first sheet, a large bed sheet, white linen, well used but still serviceable, and begins to feed it into the boiling copper. The water is far too hot to touch. She cannot reach into it with her hands, even for a moment. Instead, she uses a wooden implement, a copper stick, as it's called, though it's actually made of wood. It's a long, smooth wooden pole, about 3 or 4 feet long, with a rounded end. This tool allows her to manipulate fabric in the boiling water without burning herself. She uses the copper stick to push the sheet down into the water, submerging it fully. The fabric floats at first. Air is trapped in its fibers, creating buoyancy. The sheet billows on the surface of the water like a white island in a churning sea. But gradually, as Mary pushes it under with the stick, it absorbs water. The fibers become saturated. The fabric grows heavy. It sinks beneath the surface, disappearing into the roiling water. She adds the soap solution, pours it over the submerged sheet. The water becomes cloudy, slightly opaque. The soap is mixing with the water, spreading through the copper, reaching every part of the fabric. She adds a handful of washing soda as well. The white powder dissolves quickly in the hot water, increasing the alkalinity even further. The combination of heat, soap, and washing soda creates a powerful cleaning bath. Chemical reactions are happening in that copper. Soap molecules attaching to dirt molecules. Alkaline compounds breaking down grease. Heat loosening everything, making the dirt release from the fabric fibers. Mary uses the copper stick to agitate the sheet. She lifts one end, letting water pour off it, then pushes it back under. Lift, stir, push down. She works the stick through the water, creating currents, ensuring the soap solution reaches every part of the sheet. The motion is rhythmic, steady. Lift, stir, push down, lift, stir, push down. Her arms move in a pattern that's become automatic through years of repetition. She doesn't have to think about it, her body knows what to do. More linens join the first sheet. Another sheet from another bed. Several pillowcases. A towel. The copper is large, but there's only so much that can be washed at once. The items need room to move in the water. If they're packed too tightly, the water and soap can't circulate properly. The cleaning won't be effective. Overcrowding leads to poor results. So Mary works in manageable batches, small loads that can be properly agitated and moved through the water. The items boil. This process, boiling the whites, is crucial. It's called that explicitly. Boiling the whites. The combination of high temperature and strong soap accomplishes several things. It breaks down dirt and grime. It kills any lice or bedbugs that might be present. It whitens the fabric, helping to maintain that brilliant white color that's so important. The heat opens up the fabric fibers, allowing dirt to escape. The soap binds to the dirt. The mechanical action of stirring works everything loose. But the items can't boil forever. Too long in boiling water, even with soap, will begin to weaken the fabric. Linen is strong, but it's not invincible. Prolonged boiling can damage the fibers, causing them to break down, reducing the life of the item. Mary knows from experience how long is right. Usually about 30 minutes of active boiling. Sometimes 40 minutes for particularly soiled items, but no longer than that. She tends the fire while the first batch boils, adds more wood, adjusts the pieces to maintain good airflow and consistent heat. The fire must stay hot. The water must stay at a full boil. This requires constant attention. A fire that dies down won't maintain the temperature. Water that cools won't clean as effectively. The boiling is essential. The temperature must be maintained. She also prepares the next stage. Beside the copper is another large vessel, the rinsing tub. This is a substantial tub, made of wood or sometimes zinc or galvanized metal. She begins filling it with water. Not boiling water, but hot water. Still heated, but not at the boiling point. Perhaps 70 or 80 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to continue cleaning and rinsing, but not so hot that it would be dangerous to work with. She ladles water from a reservoir that's been warming near the stove, or she heats fresh water in a kettle, or she draws hot water from the copper before it reaches a full boil. The rinsing tub fills slowly. This water will be used for the first rinse, the water that removes the soapy residue from the boiled linens. Rinsing is as important as washing. Soap left in fabric will make it stiff, unpleasant to use. It will also cause the fabric to wear out faster, as the alkaline residue weakens the fibers over time. 30 minutes pass. Mary tracks the time partly by the clock, if there's one visible in the kitchen, but mostly by experience, by instinct. She's done this so many times she can estimate time quite accurately. The fire crackles and roars. The water churns and bubbles. The linens tumble in their bath of soap and heat. The fabric is being cleansed, fiber by fiber, as the chemical and mechanical processes do their work. Dirt is being loosened, released, carried away into the water. Now comes one of the most physically demanding parts of the process. Mary must remove the boiled linens from the copper, but the water is still at or near a full boil. Steam rises thickly. Reaching in with bare hands would cause immediate severe burns. Even with tools, this is challenging work, dangerous work. She positions herself carefully beside the copper, plants her feet firmly. She'll need good balance and leverage for what comes next. She takes the copper stick and fishes in the boiling water for the first sheet. The stick pushes through the steaming water. She can feel the resistance when it contacts the sodden fabric. Heavy, waterlogged. She hooks the stick under the sheet and begins to lift. The sheet emerges from the water slowly. Water pours from it in stream. Steam rises in intense clouds where the fabric breaks the surface. The sheet is incredibly heavy. Saturated with water, it might weigh 20 pounds, perhaps 25. The weight pulls on the copper stick, and Mary has to use both hands and all her strength to lift it. Water streams back into the copper. Gallons of water pour from the fabric. The sound is like a continuous waterfall. Splash, pour, run. The steam is intense. It rises directly into Mary's face. Her eyes water from the heat and moisture. Her face feels painfully hot, but she continues lifting, carefully. If she drops the sheet back into the copper, she'll have to start over. And the splash could send boiling water out of the copper, potentially burning her. Finally, the sheet is lifted clear of the copper. Water still drips from it, but the main weight has drained away. Mary uses the stick to guide the sheet over to the rinsing tub. She positions it carefully and lets it drop into the hot rinse water. Splash. Water splashes up, some of it hitting her apron, her arms. But the sheet is safely in the rinse tub now. She plunges it into the hot rinse water, then uses another wooden implement, a shorter stick or a wooden dolly, to work it through the water. The rinse water quickly becomes cloudy with soap residue. White suds form on the surface. Bubbles, foam. This is the soap being extracted from the fabric. Mary works the sheet through the water methodically, pushing it under, lifting it, turning it, ensuring every part is exposed to the rinse water. Squeezing and pressing to remove the soap. The rinsing must be thorough. Any soap left in the fabric will cause problems. The fabric will be stiff and uncomfortable. It will irritate skin. It will smell soapy rather than clean. and over time, the alkaline residue will damage the fibers. So Mary takes her time with the rinsing, works the sheet through the water carefully, presses it, turns it, works it. The motions are repetitive but necessary. After several minutes of rinsing in the first tub, the sheet needs a second rinse. This is standard practice. One rinse rarely removes all the soap. So there's a second rinsing tub, filled with cooler water. Not cold, but cooler than the first rinse. Perhaps 40 or 50 degrees Celsius. Warm, but not hot. Mary lifts the sheet from the first rinse tub. Again, water pours from it. Again, it's heavy with absorbed water. She transfers it to the second rinsing tub, working it through fresh water. This water stays relatively clear. This is a good sign. It means most of the soap was removed in the first rinse. But she still works the sheet through this second rinse carefully, making sure, double checking. The sheet is pressed and turned and manipulated through the clean water. Then comes the wringing. This is perhaps the most physically taxing part of the entire process. The sheet must be wrung to remove as much water as possible. In wealthier households, there might be a mangle, a device with wooden rollers that squeeze water from fabric. You feed the wet fabric between the rollers and turn a handle, and the rollers press the fabric, forcing water out. It's still work, but it's mechanical. Easier than doing it by hand. But this household doesn't have a mangle. Many middle-class households don't. They're expensive, large. Not everyone can afford them, so Mary must wring by hand. She lifts the wet sheet from the rinsing tub. Water pours from it. It's heavy, so heavy. She gathers the fabric in her hands and begins to twist. Wringing requires technique. You twist the fabric, applying force in opposite directions, squeezing water out. Mary gathers a section of sheet, perhaps 2 feet worth, and twists it. Her hands grip the wet fabric. Her arms rotate in opposite directions. The fabric twists tightly. Water pours out. Streams of water falling back into the tub or onto the floor. Her hands and forearms strain with the effort. The wet fabric is rough. It chafes against her already raw skin. Section by section, she works along the sheet. Twist, squeeze, release. Move to the next section. Twist, squeeze, release. The work is hard, genuinely hard. Her hands ache. Her shoulders and arms strain. The muscles in her forearms burn from the repeated twisting motion. Water pours from the fabric, splashing everywhere. Onto the floor, and onto her apron and dress. Onto her shoes. The kitchen floor is becoming increasingly wet and slippery. But Mary continues, section by section, working methodically along the entire length of the sheet. Each section must be wrung. The sheet must be as dry as she can make it with muscle power alone. Water is heavy, and wet laundry hung with too much water remaining will take far too long to dry. In winter or damp weather, it might not dry at all before developing a musty smell. Or worse, before it begins to mildew. Mildewed laundry is ruined laundry. All that work would be wasted. Finally, after perhaps 5 minutes of continuous wringing, her arms trembling with fatigue. The sheet is as dry as she can make it by hand. It's still damp, of course, still heavy with moisture, but the excess water has been removed. Free-flowing water has been wrung out. What remains is moisture absorbed in the fibers, which will evaporate during the drying process. She drapes the sheet over a drying rack temporarily, or carries it to a basket for items ready to be hung outside. The first item is complete, washed, rinsed, wrung, ready for drying. But it's just one item, just one sheet, and there are so many more items waiting. Back to the copper. The other items from the first batch are still boiling. They've had their full 30 minutes now. Time to remove them. One by one, she uses the copper stick to fish them out. A pillowcase, another sheet, a towel. Each one is lifted carefully from the boiling water. Each one goes through the same process. First rinse in hot water, second rinse in cooler water. Wringing. The motions become automatic. The work becomes rhythmic. But it doesn't become easier. Each item is heavy. Each item requires the same effort. Mary's back aches from bending over the tubs. Her arms ache from lifting and stirring and wringing. Her hands are becoming increasingly red and raw. The combination of hot water, harsh soap, and rough fabric is destroying her skin. But the work continues. Must continue. The pile of clean wrung linens grows slowly. Each piece represents significant effort. Each piece will go on beds and tables, presenting a face of cleanliness and respectability to the world. The copper is emptied of its first load. The water intake is now grey and cloudy with released dirt. Mary ladles it out into buckets and disposes of it. Perhaps she throws it outside, where it will water the garden. Perhaps it goes down a drain if the house has one. The dirty water is replaced with fresh water from the reservoir or pump. The fire is stoked to bring the fresh water to a boil, and the next batch of white items is prepared. More sheets if there are any, more towels, more white tablecloths and napkins. The process repeats. Boil for 30 minutes. Stir regularly with the copper stick. Lift from boiling water. First rinse. Second rinse. Wring until arms can barely continue. Set aside for drying. The rhythm continues. The work goes on. The morning advances. Perhaps it's 8 o'clock now. The family is waking. Sounds can be heard from upstairs. Footsteps. Voices. But Mary can't stop to prepare breakfast. Not today. Monday is laundry day. On other days, she would be cooking, setting the breakfast table. But today, someone else will have to handle that. Perhaps there's a cook in the household. Perhaps the family will make do with cold food. Perhaps a child is sent to fetch something from a bakery. It doesn't matter. Mary's responsibility today is laundry. Only laundry. Batch after batch. The white linens are processed. The pile of clean items grows. Each item has been boiled. Each has been rinsed twice. Each has been wrung as dry as possible. The copper is filled and emptied and refilled. The fire is fed constantly. The rinsing tubs are emptied and refilled multiple times as they accumulate soap residue and dirt. Finally, after several hours of continuous work, all the white linens are finished. Every sheet, every pillowcase, every towel, every tablecloth and napkin. The pile is substantial. It represents the morning's work. Hours of effort. Countless trips between copper and rinse tubs. Endless lifting and stirring and wringing. Mary stands for a moment, looking at the pile of clean white linens. Her face is flushed bright red from the heat. Her hair is damp with sweat and steam. Her dress is soaked through in places. Her hands are bright red, painful, cracked. Her arms tremble slightly from fatigue. Her back aches, but the whites are done. Clean, ready for drying. But Monday's work is far from over. The white linens are complete, yes, but there are still the colored items, the delicate items, the heavily soiled work clothes. Each category requires its own approach, its own careful handling, and there are still many hours of daylight left. Many more items to wash. Mary takes a moment, drinks some water. Her throat is dry from breathing the humid air. She wipes her face, rolls her aching shoulders, flexes her sore fingers. Then she turns back to the work. The next batch awaits. After a brief respite, perhaps 10 minutes to drink some water, perhaps some weak tea if there's any made, Mary returns to her work. The white linens are done, yes, piled in baskets, ready to be hung for drying. But there is still so much more to wash. The day is perhaps half over, though it feels much longer. The morning has been consumed by the work. Her muscles already ache from the hours of labor. Her hands are raw and painful. But the work continues, must continue. The colored items await. The delicate items await. And after those, the truly dirty work clothes. She takes a moment to assess her situation. The kitchen is still hot and steamy, though perhaps slightly less oppressive now that she's briefly stopped working. The fire has died down somewhat, but it still provides steady heat. The copper needs fresh water for the next round of washing. The rinsing tubs need to be emptied and refilled. There's preparation to be done before the colored items can begin their washing. Mary empties the rinsing tubs. The water is grey and soapy, evidence of all the washing that's already been completed. She doesn't waste it entirely. Some of this water goes into buckets that will be used later for scrubbing floors or washing outdoor areas. The rest is thrown out, likely into the garden, where the plants will absorb the moisture, even if it contains soap residue. The copper is refilled with fresh water. More trips to the pump, or more ladling from the reservoir if the house has running water. The water must be heated again, but this time not to a full boil. The colored items require different treatment than the whites. Lower temperature, gentler handling. The heat that's so effective for whitening linens can cause colors to fade or run. She can't risk that. While the fresh water heats, moving from cold to warm to hot but not boiling, Mary turns her attention to the sorted piles of colored laundry. These items have been waiting patiently since early morning. Dresses in various colors: blue, brown, green, gray, men's colored shirts, children's clothing in cheerful hues. Perhaps some colored bed linens, if the household uses them, though white is more common for beds. The colored items themselves are sorted further. Darker colors separated from lighter ones when possible. This is important because darker dyes are more likely to bleed. A dark blue work dress might leach color into lighter items. A deep brown petticoat could stain a cream-colored chemise. These potential disasters must be prevented. The stakes are different than with white linens. Colored items won't show small stains as readily, but color transfer would be a serious problem. It would ruin garments, possibly lead to Mary's dismissal if she ruined expensive clothing through carelessness. She begins with the lighter colored items: a pale blue cotton dress, a cream-colored petticoat with delicate trim, a light grey shirtwaist. These items need cleaning but must be treated carefully. The colors must be preserved, the fabric must not be damaged. The water in the copper is now hot but not boiling. She tests it by dipping her fingers in briefly. It's almost too hot to touch. Perhaps 80 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to clean effectively, but not so hot it will damage the colors. She adds soap, though perhaps not quite as much as she used for the whites. Too much soap can strip color from fabric. The soap itself is very alkaline, and strong alkali can affect dyes. So the soap must be measured more carefully. Enough to clean, but not so much it damages. Mary takes the pale blue dress and submerges it in the hot water. The dress spreads out in the copper, the fabric floating and then sinking as it absorbs water. She uses the copper stick to work it through the water, but her movements are more gentle than they were with the white sheets. Not the vigorous agitation used before. Instead, careful lifting and pressing, turning the garment through the water, ensuring the soapy water reaches all parts of the dress without being too rough. The dress doesn't boil. It soaks and is gently agitated in hot water. The temperature and soap work together to release dirt, but without the aggressive treatment the whites received. After perhaps 15 minutes, not 30 like the whites, Mary begins to remove it from the copper. The process is similar but modified. She lifts the dress using the copper stick, letting water drain back into the copper, then into the first rinsing tub, where she works it through hot water to remove the soap. But here's a crucial difference for colored items. In the second rinse water, Mary adds a small amount of vinegar. She pours perhaps a cup of vinegar into the second rinsing tub. The sharp scent cuts through the other smells. The soap, the steam, the slight mustiness of wet wool. The vinegar serves two purposes. First, it helps to remove any remaining soap residue. The acid in the vinegar reacts with the alkaline soap, neutralizing it. But more importantly, the vinegar helps to set the dyes. The acetic acid in vinegar, though Mary doesn't know it by that chemical name, reacts with the dye molecules, helping them bond more firmly with the fabric fibers. This helps prevent the colors from fading over time, helps them stay bright and true through many washings. The dress is worked through the vinegar rinse water. The sharp smell is strong, almost overwhelming in the already humid kitchen. But it's necessary. Mary is accustomed to it. This is simply what colored washing smells like. Soap and steam and vinegar. The dress is wrung out, though perhaps with slightly less force than was used for the sheets. Colored fabrics, especially if they contain wool or silk, can lose their shape if wrung too aggressively. So she's firm, but not violent, squeezing the water out without stretching or distorting the fabric. Her hands work the wet fabric, twisting sections, pressing, releasing. Water pours out. Her already sore hands protest at the continued rough treatment. But she ignores the discomfort. The work must be done. The dress is set aside for drying. The next light-colored item is added to the copper. The process repeats. Soak in hot water. Gentle agitation. 15 to 20 minutes. Remove. First rinse in hot water. Second rinse with vinegar. Wring carefully. Set aside. Item by item, the light-colored clothing is processed. The work is similar to washing the whites, but modified in key ways. Lower temperature. Less aggressive agitation, shorter washing time. Vinegar in the second rinse. More careful wringing. Each modification is important. Each protects the colored fabric while still achieving cleanliness. After the light colors come the darker items. A brown wool skirt, a black work dress, a navy blue petticoat. These receive similar treatment, though the water is changed between loads. The previous water, even though it was kept cooler than the boiling water used for whites, has still accumulated dirt and some dye residue. Fresh water ensures these darker items come out as clean as possible. And for very dark colors, Mary is even more careful with the vinegar rinse. Dark colors are more prone to fading. The vinegar is essential for maintaining their depth of color. The work continues. The rhythm is similar to washing the whites, but slower, more careful. Each colored garment receives individual attention. Each is treated according to its particular needs. The pile of washed colored items grows slowly. And now we come to perhaps the most delicate part of the day's washing. The fine items. The precious items. The items that require the utmost care. Mary approaches these with full awareness of their value and fragility. She prepares a different kind of wash entirely. No more using the copper. The water would be too hot, the vessel too large and unwieldy for delicate things. Instead, she fills a large basin with warm water. Not hot, but merely warm. Perhaps body temperature, 35 or 40 degrees Celsius. She adds a much smaller amount of soap, just enough to create a mild cleaning solution. These items will be washed entirely by hand, with gentle pressing and squeezing motions. The first delicate item is a lace collar. Victorian ladies' clothing often featured lace. Intricate, beautiful, and expensive. A lace collar for a Sunday dress might cost a week's wages or more. Damaging it would be a disaster. Possibly grounds for immediate dismissal if a servant ruined particularly valuable lace through careless washing. Mary submerges the lace in the warm, mildly soapy water. She doesn't stir it with a stick, doesn't agitate it vigorously. Instead, she presses it gently with her hands. The motion is almost a massage. Gentle pressure, working the soapy water through the delicate fabric without pulling or stretching. Lace is fragile. Its open structure means it can tear or distort easily. Each motion must be controlled. Careful, almost tender. The lace soaks for a few minutes while Mary tends to other tasks. Then she returns to it, lifts it gently from the water, presses it carefully, squeezing excess water, but never twisting or wringing. Lace cannot be wrung. The force would ruin its shape, destroy its delicate structure. The lace goes into a rinse basin. Pure water, no vinegar. Vinegar might damage such delicate fibers. She rinses it carefully, pressing it through clean water. Changes the water. Rinses again. The soap must be completely removed, but without any aggressive handling. For drying, the lace cannot be hung on a line. Its weight when wet would cause it to stretch out of shape. Instead, Mary lays it flat on a clean white towel. She spreads the lace out carefully, arranging it to maintain its shape. Then she rolls the towel with the lace inside and presses firmly. The towel absorbs much of the moisture from the lace without subjecting it to twisting or wringing. This is the proper way to handle delicate lace. If there are silk items, perhaps a silk blouse or a silk scarf, these receive even more gentle treatment. Silk is perhaps the most delicate of all common fabrics. Too much heat will damage it. Too much agitation will damage it. Harsh soap will damage it. Even wringing will damage it, causing the fibers to lose their characteristic luster and become dull. A silk blouse, if one exists in this household, is washed in barely warm water, almost cool. Perhaps 30 degrees Celsius. The soap is minimal, the gentlest possible. Mary moves the blouse through the water with the most delicate motions. Less washing and more bathing, as if the garment were an infant that might be harmed by rough handling. The rinse water for silk contains a tiny amount of glycerin. Just a few drops. This helps preserve the silk's natural sheen. After rinsing gently, carefully, with multiple changes of clean water, the silk is rolled in a towel exactly like the lace, pressed but never wrung, the moisture absorbed by the towel without damage to the fabric. All of these fine items will need special attention when it comes time for drying as well. They cannot simply be hung on outdoor lines like sturdier items. They must be laid flat or shaped carefully to maintain their form as they dry. But that's a concern for later. For now, they join the growing collection of washed items. Mary works through the delicate items carefully. A fine lawn handkerchief, several pairs of lace cuffs, perhaps a delicate muslin dress. Each receives the same careful, gentle treatment. Each is washed in water that's barely warm, with minimal soap, with the gentlest possible handling. Each is rinsed thoroughly but gently. Each is rolled in a towel to remove excess moisture. The work is slower than washing the sturdier items, but it cannot be rushed. These items are valuable. They represent significant investment, and they're fragile. One careless moment could ruin them. So Mary takes her time, works carefully, maintains her concentration even though she's been working for many hours now, and exhaustion is setting in. Finally, the colored items and delicate items are complete. The piles of washed laundry continue to grow. Whites, colors, delicates, everything clean or at least cleaner than it was. But there's still one category remaining. One more round of washing before Monday's work can be considered complete. The truly dirty items, the work clothes, the heavily soiled things that need the most aggressive treatment the washing process can provide. Mary looks at this final pile with a mixture of determination and weariness. Her arms ache, her back aches. Her hands are painfully raw. But she's not finished yet. Not quite yet. These last items need to be washed. And then, finally, Monday's washing will be done. She prepares herself mentally for this final push, rolls her shoulders, flexes her sore hands, takes a drink of water, and then turns back to the copper, ready to begin the last and perhaps most demanding round of washing. The afternoon is wearing on now. Hours have passed since Mary first lit the fire in the pre-dawn darkness. The kitchen remains hot and steamy, though the intensity has perhaps decreased slightly as the fire begins to lose some of its earlier vigor. But there's still work to be done. Still items to be washed. The final category awaits. The most challenging items. The ones that truly need aggressive treatment. These final items are the ones that need everything the washing process can provide. Work clothes worn by servants doing heavy labor. The gardener's shirts and trousers, begrimed with soil and sweat and the green stains of grass and plants. Kitchen maids' aprons, marked with food stains and grease from cooking. Mary's own work, dresses and aprons from previous weeks, stained from kitchen labor and from laundry days past. If there are children in the household, their play clothes are here too. Remarkably soiled, considering that nice children weren't supposed to get that dirty, but somehow they managed anyway. Grass stains on knees, mud ground into fabric, the general accumulation of enthusiastic outdoor activity. The water in the copper has been replaced again with fresh water. Mary has made more trips to the pump, or filled more containers from the tap if the house has running water. Her arms ache from all the carrying she's already done today. But these items need fresh, clean water, brought to a full boil. The water that was used for the colored items, even though it was kept cooler, has still accumulated dirt and residue. For these heavily soiled items, only the hottest, freshest water will do. She tends the fire, building it back up to full strength. Adds more wood. Adjusts the pieces to ensure good airflow and maximum heat. The flames grow larger, the heat intensifies. The water in the copper begins to warm, moving from cold through tepid to warm to hot. Steam begins to rise once more. The kitchen, which had begun to cool slightly, becomes hot and humid again. While the water heats, Mary examines the soiled item more carefully. Some of these need pre-treatment beyond what she did this morning. The stains on these items are more than just surface dirt. They're ground in, embedded deep in the fabric fibers through repeated wear and accumulated soil. She takes a gardener's work shirt from the pile. This shirt has been worn for a week of heavy outdoor labor, perhaps longer. The collar is dark with grime where it rubbed against the neck. Layers of dirt and body oils have accumulated there, creating a grey-brown discoloration. The armpits show yellowing from sweat. The cuffs are stained from wiping hands that themselves have been handling soil and plants and tools. Dirt is literally ground into the fabric. This shirt needs more than just washing. It needs treatment. Before it goes into the boiling water, Mary treats the most soiled areas with additional soap. She takes a bar of the yellow laundry soap, harsh, alkaline, effective, and rubs it directly onto the collar. The soap is slightly damp from the humidity in the kitchen, making it easier to work into the fabric. She rubs vigorously, working up a thick lather. The soap is slippery and caustic. It makes her already raw hands sting sharply. The pain is significant, but she's experienced worse. She ignores it as best she can and continues working the soap into the grimy fabric. The collar, the armpits, the cuffs. Each heavily soiled area receives this treatment. Soap rubbed directly into the fabric, worked in with firm pressure. The lather builds, white suds against dirty grey fabric. The soap is beginning its work even before the item enters the water, breaking down the oils, beginning to loosen the dirt. Only after this pre-treatment does the shirt go into the copper. The water is at a full rolling boil now. Steam rises in thick clouds once more. The kitchen is again filled with that hot, moist air that makes breathing feel difficult. Mary uses the copper stick to push the shirt down into the boiling water. It joins other similarly soiled items. Another work shirt, several stained aprons, a pair of work trousers with mud caked into the knees, all of them submerged in the churning, boiling water. She adds extra washing soda to the water, more than she used for any other load, perhaps 2 or 3 handfuls of the white powder. It dissolves quickly, creating an even more alkaline solution. The washing soda serves multiple purposes. It makes the water more alkaline, which helps break down grease and protein-based stains. It helps soften hard water, which in turn makes the soap work more effectively. The chemical reactions happening in that boiling copper are complex, though Mary doesn't think about them in scientific terms. She just knows that washing soda helps with dirty things, makes them cleaner. That's what matters. These items will boil longer than anything else washed today. Perhaps 45 minutes. Maybe even an hour for particularly grimy items. The combination of high heat, strong soap, and extended time is necessary. The dirt in these items is stubborn. It's being ground in through wear and sweat and hard physical labor. It won't be released easily. The items need time in that boiling, agitated water. Time for the heat and chemicals to work their way deep into the fabric fibers. Time to break the bonds between dirt and cloth. While they boil, Mary tends them more actively than she did any other loads. She uses the copper stick not just to stir them passively, but to actively work them. She lifts items partially out of the water, then pushes them back under forcefully. This action helps work the boiling water and soap solution through the fabric more thoroughly. It ensures that all parts of the garments get equal exposure to the hottest water and the most concentrated soap. She does this repeatedly. Lift, push down, lift, push down. The motion requires strength. Her arms are already tired from the morning's work, but she continues. This is necessary. The water in the copper turns dark, grey, brown in places. This is the dirt being extracted from the fabric. The dirt is literally being carried away by the water, dissolved by the soap, released by the heat, broken down by the alkalinity. The transformation is visible. The water that started clear and hot is becoming increasingly murky, dirty. This is good. This is progress. Visible proof that the washing is working, that the dirt is leaving the fabric and entering the water. After the prolonged boiling, Mary judges the time partly by instinct, partly by how the items look when she lifts them briefly with the stick. These items go through the same rinsing process as everything else has. 2 rinses. Hot water first to remove the soap and the worst of the loosened dirt. Then cooler water for the final rinse. She works each item through the rinse water vigorously. There's no need to be gentle with work clothes. They're meant to be tough, to withstand rough treatment. But even after the boiling and the double rinsing, some items are still showing stubborn stains. The collar on one shirt still has a grey tinge despite the aggressive washing. A child's pinafore still shows faint grass stains on the knees. An apron has grease marks that have faded but haven't disappeared completely. For these particularly stubborn cases, Mary takes the items to a washing board. This is a rectangular wooden board, perhaps 2 feet long and 18 inches wide, with a ridged surface. The ridges are made of wood, or sometimes corrugated metal. They create a rough surface against which fabric can be scrubbed. She positions the washing board in a tub of clean water, leans it at an angle against the side of the tub. She takes the shirt with the still grimy collar, wets the stained area thoroughly, applies more soap, rubbing it directly onto the fabric once again. Then she places the soaped collar against the ridged surface of the washing board and begins to scrub, back and forth, back and forth. The mechanical action of rubbing the fabric against the ridged surface helps to physically scrub out stains that the boiling water and soap alone couldn't fully remove. The motion is hard on the fabric. This kind of treatment will cause the fibers to wear out faster. The friction damages them at a microscopic level, breaking down their structure over time. But these are work clothes. They're meant to be worn hard and washed hard. They're not precious, they're functional. Their purpose is to protect better clothing from the dirt of labor. And when they eventually wear out from this treatment, they'll be replaced. That's simply their life cycle. The scrubbing motion is hard on Mary's hands too. The ridged surface of the washing board is rough. It's meant to be rough. That's what makes it effective. But it's abrasive against skin as well as fabric. The constant friction, combined with the soap and water, makes her already raw hands hurt even more. The pain is sharp, persistent. But she continues. Back and forth, using physical force to achieve what chemicals alone couldn't accomplish. Slowly, the stain fades. Not always completely. Some stains are simply too set, too deep, too permanent to be fully removed. But it fades enough to make the garment acceptable for another week of wear. Enough that it won't be shamefully dirty. The goal isn't perfection with work clothes. The goal is clean enough, serviceable enough, good enough to wear again. One by one, the particularly stubborn items are treated this way. Scrubbed against the washing board, the motion repeated over and over. Mary's arms burn with fatigue. The muscles in her shoulders ache. But she works through the pile methodically. Each item receives the attention it needs. Each stubborn stain is addressed as well as possible. The grass stains on the child's pinafore respond somewhat to scrubbing. Grass stains are notoriously difficult, and these don't come out completely, but they fade to a pale green shadow rather than the vivid stains they were. The apron's grease marks lighten with repeated applications of soap and scrubbing. Some grease remains. Grease is perhaps the most stubborn of all common stains. But the apron looks significantly better than it did. Each item is scrubbed, then rinsed again in clean water to remove any soap added during the scrubbing process, then wrung out with all the force Mary can manage. These items are sturdy. They can take rough handling. In fact, they need aggressive wringing because their thick fabric will take a long time to dry, even in the best conditions. She twists each garment forcefully, section by section. Water pours out. Her hands grip the rough, wet fabric. Her arms rotate in opposite directions. The twisting motion strains every muscle. But she continues until each item is as dry as human strength can make it. Finally, the last item is finished. The last work shirt is scrubbed clean enough, rinsed and wrung. The last soiled apron has been treated and processed. The last stained garment has been addressed. The copper is empty. The fire has died down to glowing coals. The rinsing tubs contain dark, dirty water. Evidence of all the soil that's been extracted from the day's washing. Every item of laundry in the household has been washed. Whites, colours, delicates, work clothes, everything. The piles of clean, damp laundry are substantial. They fill multiple baskets. They represent a full day's labour. Hours upon hours of continuous work. Mary has been working since 4 in the morning. It's now perhaps 3 or 4 in the afternoon. 12 hours or more of nearly continuous labour. Hundreds of gallons of water heated and used. Countless trips between copper and rinse tubs and scrubbing board. Endless stirring with the copper stick. Constant wringing. Continuous bending and lifting and reaching. But Monday's primary work, the actual washing, is finished. The laundry is clean. Well, cleaner than it was. Victorian cleaning standards achieve what was possible with the tools and knowledge available. Not every stain is gone. Not every item is perfectly pristine. But everything has been washed according to appropriate methods. Everything has received the care and attention that its type demands. Mary stands for a moment, surveying her work. Her face is flushed, though the intense red has faded slightly as the fire has died down. Her hair is completely damp now, limp with moisture despite being pinned up. Her dress is soaked through. The fabric clings to her uncomfortably. Her apron is soaked and stained with the day's work. Her shoes squelch when she walks. Her hands, she looks down at them, bright red, swollen, cracked and painful. The skin is damaged from hours of exposure to hot water, harsh chemicals, and rough wet fabric. Her back aches deeply. The muscles are tight and sore from bending over tubs all day. Her shoulders throb. Her arms feel weak and trembling from all the lifting and wringing. She's exhausted. Truly, deeply exhausted in a way that comes only from sustained physical labor. But the washing is done. The items are clean. And now comes the next phase. These piles of clean, damp laundry, all of this wet fabric, needs to be dried. And depending on the weather, that might be straightforward, or it might be a significant challenge. Let's talk about drying next. The process that will determine whether Monday's hard work results in clean, fresh laundry ready for use, or whether complications will require even more time and effort. It's now late afternoon. The sun is descending toward the horizon. The maid has been working since before dawn. Her clothes are soaked with splashed water and perspiration. Her face is flushed and streaked with sweat. Her hands are red and raw and aching. Her back hurts. Her shoulders hurt. Her arms hurt. But the washing is done. And now comes the drying. In ideal circumstances. On a warm, sunny, breezy day. Drying is relatively straightforward. The laundry is simply carried outside and hung on lines stretched across the yard or garden. The combination of sun, warmth, and moving air will dry even heavy items like sheets in a few hours. But this is Britain. The weather is frequently not ideal. In fact, it's more often cold, damp, and overcast than warm, sunny, and breezy. And in winter, even if the day starts clear, freezing temperatures create their own challenges. Laundry hung outside in freezing weather will freeze solid, stiff as boards. requiring it to be brought back inside to thaw before it can continue drying. Today, we'll imagine a typical British day. Overcast. A bit of dampness in the air. Not raining, thankfully, but not sunny either. Not particularly warm. The kind of day when drying will take longer. When every item will need careful positioning to catch what little air movement there is. The laundry lines are strung across the back garden. They're permanent fixtures in most Victorian households, stretched between posts or between the house and the garden wall. The lines are made of rope or later, braided wire. They need to be strung to support the weight of wet laundry. She gathers the first basket of clean items, the white sheets. These are the largest, the heaviest, and they'll take the longest to dry. They need to go on the line first, positioned where they'll catch the most air. Carrying the basket outside, she feels the cool air on her overheated face. It's a relief after hours in the steamy kitchen. The fresh air is wonderful. But her hands, wet and already chilled from the cold rinse water, quickly become painfully cold in the outside air. She takes the first sheet and shakes it out. The fabric snaps and flutters. Any wrinkles are shaken loose. Then she drapes it over the line, positioning it carefully so that it hangs evenly on both sides. She uses wooden clothespins to secure it. These are simple split pins that grip the fabric and the line. They're not particularly strong. They'll sometimes slip or fall off in a strong wind. But they're sufficient for a calm day. 1 sheet, 2 sheets, pillowcases, towels. The white items go up on the highest lines, where they're least likely to be splashed by rain if any falls. White items must stay clean. Any dirt or mud splashed on them would mean washing them again. And after today's labors, that's unthinkable. The line begins to fill. The white linens flutter gently in the slight breeze. They'll take hours to dry. Possibly they won't be fully dry by nightfall. In that case, they'll be left on the line overnight, unless rain threatens. Morning dew will dampen them again, but the sun tomorrow, if the sun appears, will finish the drying process. Next come the colored items, the dresses and shirts and petticoats. These are hung with similar care. Items are positioned so they don't touch each other too much. Air needs to circulate around each piece for efficient drying. Items that touch will stay damp where they press together. Colored items can go on lower lines. They're less likely to show any dirt that might splash up from the ground. And if they do get slightly soiled, well, they're colored. Small spots won't show as much. The delicate items require special handling even for drying. Lace cannot be hung on a line. Its weight, when wet, would stretch it out of shape. Instead, it's laid flat on clean cloths, spread over bushes or on a drying rack. The lace is pinned carefully to maintain its shape as it dries. Silk items are also laid flat or hung very carefully with minimal contact points. Too much weight pulling on wet silk can stretch it permanently. So a silk blouse, if one was washed today, is buttoned and hung on a padded hanger rather than pinned to a line. The hanger distributes the weight more evenly, reducing the risk of distortion. The work clothes. The sturdy, heavily washed items. These can be treated with less ceremony. They were hung on the lower lines, sometimes bunched more closely together than the nicer item. They'll take a long time to dry because the fabric is thick and it was thoroughly soaked during the aggressive washing process. But they're durable. They can handle whatever treatment they receive. Item by item, the clean laundry is hung or laid out. The work is mindless at this point. Pick up an item, shake it out, position it on the line, pin it, move to the next item. The repetitive nature is almost soothing after the intensity of the washing. But even now, there are considerations. Items need to be positioned for modesty. In particular, women's undergarments shouldn't be visible from the street. It's improper, shameful even. So these items are hung on inner lines, behind other items, where they're screened from public view. Sheets and towels serve as a curtain, hiding the more intimate items from any passing eyes. The garden begins to resemble a maze of hanging fabric, lines crisscrossing the space, white sheets like sails, colored dresses swaying gently. The scent of clean, damp fabric, mixed with the smell of soap and washing soda, fills the air. If this were summer, the items might be dry by evening. But today, in the cool dampness of autumn or spring, they'll need to hang until tomorrow. The maid will check them periodically. Feel them to see if they're drying evenly. Rearrange items that aren't getting enough air. Bring in any items that become dry enough, but some items can't wait until tomorrow to be fully dry. The family needs clean linens for tonight. So a few items, perhaps today's tea towels or tonight's hand towels, are brought inside to finish drying near the fire. They're draped on a wooden drying rack, positioned in front of the fireplace or near the stove. The warmth from the fire will finish the drying process quickly. Of course, this means the house now smells of damp laundry drying. The clean, soapy scent permeates the rooms. It's not unpleasant, really. Many people associate this smell with the comfort of home, with cleanliness and care. But it does mean the house feels slightly damp for a day or so. The final items are hung. The final basket is empty. The garden is full of clean laundry, fluttering in the breeze. It's a satisfying sight. The physical proof of a day's hard labor. Every piece clean. Every piece taking its turn in the air. But even now, Monday's work isn't completely finished. There's still the kitchen to clean. The laundry is washed and hung. But the kitchen, the wash house, whatever space was used for this day's labor, is in a state that can only be described as chaotic. Water everywhere, puddles on the floor, condensation dripping from the ceiling, empty soap containers, dirty water in tubs. The copper still warm, but filthy with soap scum and debris. The maid stands for a moment, surveying the scene. Her wet shoes squelch when she walks. Her skirts are heavy with absorbed moisture. She's exhausted, truly, deeply exhausted. Every muscle aches. But there's still work to be done before this Monday can be complete. First, the water in the various tubs must be disposed of. This is heavy work. A tub full of dirty wash water weighs a tremendous amount. She can't simply pick it up and carry it. Instead, she must bail it out, bucket by bucket. Or, in some cases, tip the tub carefully and pour the water into a drain or out the back door. The soapy water from the early washes might be saved if there's any other cleaning that needs doing. Floors can be scrubbed with used wash water. Outdoor paving stones can be cleaned with it. The water's already soapy. Why waste it? So some of it is set aside for tomorrow's floor washing. But most of the water, especially the darker water from washing the heavily soiled items, is simply disposed of. Down the drain if the house has a drain. Into the garden if not. Victorian gardens were accustomed to receiving household wastewater. In fact, plants often appreciated the moisture and the trace minerals in the water. The copper must be scrubbed. Soap residue has built up on its sides. A ring of scum marks the water level. This must be removed before the next Monday, or it will accumulate and become harder to clean. She uses a coarse cloth and a bit of sand. Sand is an excellent abrasive for cleaning metal, and scrubs the inside of the copper clean. The work is repetitive. Scrub in circles. Dip the cloth in clean water. Scrub again. The soap scum gradually gives way. The copper begins to shine. Not a bright shine. It's a utilitarian vessel, not a decorative piece. But clean enough, respectable enough. The wash tubs receive similar treatment. Any built-up soap or dirt is scrubbed away. The tubs are then rinsed and set aside to drain. They'll dry overnight, ready for next Monday's labours. The floor is a disaster. Water has splashed everywhere during the day's work. Puddles have formed in low spots. The floor is slippery and treacherous. This needs to be mopped. She fills a bucket with some of the saved wash water, gets a mop, and begins working her way across the floor. The motion is familiar. Back and forth. Long strokes. Working the moisture into the mop, then squeezing it out, then mopping again. Her arms are tired. She's been using them all day. But this is the last task. Just this, just the floor. Then she can rest. The dirty water is wrung from the mop into a bucket. The bucket is emptied outside. The process repeats until the floor is as clean and as dry as it's going to get tonight. It will be slightly damp until morning. The humidity from the day's work has saturated everything. But at least it's no longer puddled and dangerous. The tools are put away. The copper stick, the washboard. The wooden implements used for stirring and lifting. All of these are rinsed clean and hung on their hooks, everything in its place, ready for next week. The fire in the stove has died down to ashes now. These ashes need to be removed before tomorrow morning's breakfast fire can be laid. She uses a small shovel to scoop them into a metal bucket. The ashes are still slightly warm, but no longer dangerously hot. They'll be scattered in the garden tomorrow, adding potash to the soil. Finally, the kitchen is clean, or as clean as it's going to be after such a day. There's still a general dampness to everything. The air is still humid. But the chaos has been brought under control. Order has been restored. The space is ready to return to its normal function. She removes her soaked apron. Underneath, her dress is also damp in places, but it will dry overnight while she sleeps. Her shoes are thoroughly soaked. They squelch with every step. She removes them, setting them by the stove to dry. Her hands, her poor hands, are red and raw. The skin is cracked and painful. She goes to the scullery and dips them in a bowl of cold water, to which she's added a bit of oatmeal. The oatmeal soothes the irritation slightly. It's a small comfort, but it's something. Tomorrow she might apply a bit of glycerin or lanolin to help the skin heal. But tonight, there's no time for such luxuries. Tonight, she simply rinses her hands and dries them carefully on a towel. Monday is done. The washing is complete. But tomorrow is Tuesday, and Tuesday brings its own labors. The sun rises on Tuesday morning. In the garden, the laundry still hangs on the lines, somewhat drier than yesterday, but not fully dry yet. The heavy items, the sheets and towels, are still distinctly damp. The lighter items, the handkerchiefs and stockings, are nearly dry. But Tuesday isn't about drying. Tuesday is about ironing. And ironing in the Victorian age is a significant undertaking. Not like our modern experience of running an electric iron over a few items. Victorian ironing is hours of labor, requiring strength, skill, and constant attention. The maid rises early again, though not quite as early as Monday. She dresses, eats a quick breakfast, and begins preparing for the day's work. The first step is to heat the irons. In a Victorian household, irons is plural. There's not just one iron, there are several. Multiple flat irons, all made of cast iron, ranging in size from small irons for delicate work to large, heavy irons for sheets and tablecloths. These irons don't have internal heating elements. Instead, they must be heated by placing them near or on the fire. She stokes the kitchen fire, building it up hot. The irons are lined up on the stovetop or on a specially designed iron heater. They'll need to be very hot to work effectively. Cast iron takes a long time to heat. But once hot, it retains that heat well. While the irons heat, which will take at least 30 minutes, she prepares the ironing station. A thick blanket is spread on the kitchen table. Over this goes a clean white sheet. This creates a padded surface suitable for ironing. The table must be sturdy. Ironing involves applying significant downward pressure, and a wobbly table would make the work impossible. She also prepares her equipment: a bowl of clean water, a clean rag for dampening items, a basket for finished items, and importantly, a few pieces of thick cloth to serve as holders. She'll need these to pick up the hot irons without burning her hands. The irons have been heating for half an hour or more. She tests one by carefully touching a fingertip to its surface, pulling away immediately. Too hot to touch. Good. But is it too hot? An iron that's too hot will scorch fabric, leaving brown marks that are permanent. She tests it by sprinkling a few drops of water on its surface. The water should sizzle and dance, but not instantly vaporize. If it vaporizes immediately, the iron is too hot and needs to cool slightly. She tests the temperature another way as well. She takes a piece of scrap white cloth and quickly presses the iron against it. No brown mark appears. The iron is hot, but not scorching. Perfect. She's ready to begin. The items to be ironed have been brought in from the garden. Those that are completely dry are ready to iron immediately. Those that are still slightly damp are actually ideal. The dampness makes the ironing process more effective. The moisture in the fabric, combined with heat and pressure, helps to smooth out wrinkles better than ironing completely dry fabric. She begins with the tablecloths. These are large items that require careful attention. She spreads the first tablecloth on her padded table, smoothing it with her hands to remove any major wrinkles. Then, using a thick cloth to protect her hands, she picks up the hot iron. The iron is heavy. 6 or 7 pounds of solid cast iron. Her still aching arms from yesterday's labour protest at the weight. But she lifts it, positions it on the tablecloth, and begins to press. The motion is methodical. Press down firmly. Lift. Move the iron to the next section. Press down. Lift. Move. The iron glides over the damp fabric, the heat and pressure smoothing the wrinkles as it goes. Steam rises where the hot iron contacts the damp cloth. The smell of hot fabric fills the kitchen. She works in sections, ensuring each area is thoroughly ironed before moving on. She pays particular attention to the edges and corners. These are the most visible parts when the cloth is on the table, so they must be perfectly smooth. The center is less critical. Dishes and serving pieces will hide minor imperfections there, but the edges must be pristine. After several minutes of work, the iron begins to cool. She can feel it. The iron doesn't glide as smoothly. The wrinkles don't disappear as quickly. She returns the cooling iron to the stove and picks up another one that's been heating. This system, rotating between multiple irons, ensures that she always has a hot iron available. The cooling iron heats while she uses the hot one. The tablecloth is large. It takes perhaps 20 minutes to iron completely. Her arm aches from lifting the heavy iron repeatedly. Her back aches from bending over the table. The kitchen is growing warm from the fire needed to keep the irons hot. But the tablecloth is done, and it looks beautiful. Crisp, smooth, white and pristine. It's folded carefully and set aside. Next, the sheets. These are also large items, though they don't need to be quite as perfectly ironed as tablecloths. After all, they'll just be wrinkled again when slept on. But Victorian standards require that household linens be ironed. Smoothness is next to cleanliness, and cleanliness is next to godliness. The sheets are ironed efficiently, but perhaps not quite as meticulously as the tablecloths. She works quickly, covering large areas with each pass of the iron. The sheets are folded as they're finished, creating neat rectangles that can be easily stored in the linen closet. Then come the smaller items: pillowcases, tea towels, napkins. Each receives its share of attention. The napkins, like the tablecloths, must be perfectly pressed. They'll be seen by family and guests. Any wrinkles would be a mark of poor housekeeping. As she irons, she must constantly monitor the temperature of the irons. Too cool, and they won't smooth the wrinkles. Too hot, and they'll scorch. She tests frequently, either by sprinkling water or by touching the iron to scrap cloth. She adjusts by either giving an iron more time to heat or letting it cool for a moment before using it. After the linens come the personal clothing, shirts, blouses, dresses. These require even more care than the linens. Clothing has shaping, darts, and seams and gathering. That must be preserved during ironing. It's not just about making fabric flat. It's about pressing the fabric smooth while maintaining the garment's three-dimensional form. A man's shirt is a complicated thing to iron. The collar must be pressed flat and stiff. The cuffs must be perfectly smooth. The front panel, which will be visible when the shirt is worn, must be without a single wrinkle. The back panel is less critical but should still be neat. She uses a smaller, lighter iron for some of this work. The large, heavy irons are good for flat items like sheets, but they're unwieldy for detailed work. The small iron can get into corners and around buttons more easily. The collar is ironed first, while the iron is hottest. Collars need to be very crisp. They need to stand up properly. She presses firmly, creating sharp creases where creases belong. Then the cuffs. With similar attention, the front panel, the back panel, the sleeves. Each part receives its due care. A woman's dress is even more complex. There are sleeves with gathers at the shoulder. There's a bodice with darts and shaping. There's a skirt with pleats or gathers. Each element must be pressed to maintain its intended form. Gathers must stay gathered, not be flattened. Pleats must be sharp and even. This requires skill. The maid must understand how the garment is constructed and press accordingly. In some areas, she doesn't press flat at all. Instead, she merely steams the fabric slightly and shapes it with her hands. In other areas, she presses firmly to create crisp edges. The work continues for hours, item after item. The pile of finished, beautifully ironed laundry grows. The fire is stoked regularly to keep the irons hot. The room grows warmer and warmer. The maid's face is flushed, both from the heat and from the physical exertion. Her arms ache from lifting the heavy irons. Her back aches from bending over the table. There's a rhythm to it, though. Heat the irons. Test for temperature. Iron an item. Rotate to a fresh hot iron. Set the cooling iron back on the stove. Pick up the next item. Sprinkle with water if it's too dry. Press, 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 fold, set aside. Next item. Finally, as the afternoon light begins to fade, the ironing is complete. Every washable item in the household has been cleaned and pressed. The piles of finished laundry are substantial. Stacks of crisp white linens, carefully pressed clothing, everything smooth and neat and ready to be put away. But they can't be put away immediately. Some items, especially those that were very damp when ironed, need a bit more time to finish drying. The process of ironing removes most of the moisture, but not quite all. The items need to air for a while, perhaps an hour or two, to ensure they're completely dry before being folded and stored. Otherwise, they might develop a musty smell in the closet. So the items are draped carefully around the kitchen or laid on a clean surface. They'll finish drying over the next few hours. Meanwhile, the irons are left to cool. The fire is allowed to die down. The kitchen table is cleared, the blanket and sheet removed and folded away. Tuesday is complete. Monday was washing. Tuesday was ironing. And now there's only one task left in the weekly laundry cycle: putting everything away. Wednesday morning. The laundry from Monday's wash is now completely dry. The items ironed yesterday have aired sufficiently. Everything is ready to be put away. This might seem like a simple task. Just fold things and put them in closets. But in a Victorian household, even this has its particular standards and procedures. The maid begins with the household linens. These go into the linen closet or the linen press, a large piece of furniture designed specifically for storing linens. But they can't just be tossed in randomly. There's an order to it, a system. Sheets are folded first. A large sheet must be folded carefully to keep it manageable. She might enlist another servant to help with this. One person on each end of the sheet, folding it in half, then half again, then meeting in the middle for the final call. The result is a neat, compact rectangle. But there's more to it than just folding. Sheets need to be rotated. The ones that were just washed go to the bottom of the stack. The ones already in the linen press come out for use. This ensures even wear. If the same sheets were used every week, they would wear out much faster than the others. By rotating through the entire collection, all the sheets wear evenly and last longer. This principle of rotation applies to everything: towels, tablecloths, napkins. The freshly laundered items go to the bottom. The items on top are used next. It's a practical system that extends the life of expensive household textiles. The linen press is organized by type. Sheets on one shelf, pillowcases on another, towels on a third, tablecloths on a fourth. Everything has its place. This organization makes it easy to find what's needed. When it's time to change the bed linens, the sheets are right there, as in the expected place. Some items are wrapped in paper or cloth to protect them, the very best tablecloths. The ones used only for formal dinners or special occasions might be wrapped in blue paper. The blue dye in the paper helps keep the linens white by counteracting any yellowing. It's a small thing, but Victorian housekeepers knew many such small things. After the general linens, the personal clothing is put away. Men's shirts go into wardrobes or drawers, folded carefully to minimize wrinkles. Women's dresses are hung in wardrobes on padded hangers if available. Undergarments are folded and placed in drawers organized by type. Children's clothing is put away in their rooms, perhaps with a bit less ceremony than the adults' things, but still neatly folded and organized. Even children's clothing represents an investment. It needs to be cared for properly. As she's putting items away, the maid inspects each one. This is an important part of the Wednesday routine. She looks for any damage that might have occurred during the washing process. A button that's come loose. A seam that's starting to open. A place where the fabric is wearing thin. She also looks for damage that existed before, but wasn't addressed. Perhaps a small tear that wasn't noticed until now. A frayed cuff. A hem that's coming undone. These issues need to be recorded and addressed. She keeps a running list of mending tasks. This sheet needs a button replaced. That pillowcase has a small tear. This shirt collar is fraying and will need to be turned. These stockings need to be darned. Turning a collar is an interesting Victorian economy. When a shirt collar becomes too worn on the visible edge, rather than discarding the entire shirt, the collar is removed, turned inside out and re-sewn. What was the inside, still relatively unworn, becomes the outside. This extends the life of the shirt by months or even years. The mending will be done later. Perhaps this afternoon. Perhaps over the course of the week, during quieter moments. Victorian servants and housewives were expected to be skilled with a needle. Mending wasn't optional. It was a necessary skill for maintaining a household wardrobe without excessive expense. Some items need more attention than just a quick repair. A sheet that's becoming thin in the center might be sides to middled. This involves cutting the sheet down the center, then swapping the outer edges to the middle and the worn middle to the edges. The sheet is then resewn. The worn area ends up at the edges where it will receive less stress, while the stronger fabric moves to the center where most of the wear occurs. This can extend a sheet's life significantly. As the morning progresses, all the clean laundry is put away, every item in its proper place. The linen closets are neat and orderly. The wardrobes are organized. The drawers are tidy. The house has absorbed all the clean laundry from Monday's work, and everything is in readiness for the week ahead. The mending basket, meanwhile, has grown fuller. All the items needing attention have been identified and placed in the basket. Some mending is urgent. A button that's barely hanging on might fall off if the garment is worn before it's fixed. Other mending is less urgent, but still important. That thin spot in a sheet isn't a crisis, but it will become one if left unattended. The maid sits down with her mending basket. She has thread in various colors, needles of different sizes, buttons, patches of fabric for more extensive repairs. This is quiet work, contemplative work, not the physical labor of washing and ironing, but still necessary, still part of the endless cycle of maintaining a household. She threads a needle, chooses a button from her collection that matches the missing one, sews it on carefully, ensuring it's secure. That shirt is fixed. She folds it and sets it aside to be returned to its drawer. Next, the torn pillowcase. She examines the tear. It's small, just a couple of inches, and then clean-edged. She can repair this without a patch. She threads her needle with white thread, turns the pillowcase inside out, and begins to sew the tear closed. Small, even stitches. The repair is nearly invisible when done properly. The pillowcase will last for years longer. And so, the week's laundry cycle concludes. Monday was washing. Tuesday was ironing. Wednesday is putting away and mending. By Wednesday afternoon, everything is complete. Every item washed, dried, ironed, inspected and stored. Any necessary repairs identified and addressed. Next week, it will all happen again. Monday morning will dawn, and the maid will rise in the darkness to begin once more. The copper will be filled. The fire will be lit. The soap will be shaved. The washing will commence. Week after week, month after month, year after year. This is the rhythm of Victorian life. The endless labor of maintaining cleanliness and order. The work that kept households running but left no monuments. The ordinary, necessary work of everyday life. Before we conclude our journey through Victorian Laundry Day, it's worth considering the social aspects of this labor. Laundry wasn't just a practical necessity. It was also deeply connected to social status, household organization, and even public image. In wealthy households, laundry was done by dedicated laundry maids. These were specialized servants whose entire job was managing the household wash. In the grandest houses, there might be multiple laundry maids working under a head laundress. These households generated truly prodigious amounts of laundry. Multiple changes of clothes daily for family members. Elaborate table linens for formal dinners. Bed linens for family and guests. Servants' clothing. The quantity was overwhelming. Large estates often had separate laundry buildings set apart from the main house. These might be quite substantial structures with multiple coppers, extensive drying areas, dedicated ironing rooms. The laundresses worked there, removed from the main household, doing their hot, damp, physically demanding work away from the view of the family they served. In middle-class households, the situation was different. There might be a single general maid who did all the work, including laundry. Or, if the household could afford it, Perhaps a specialist laundress came in for the day. This was common in urban areas. A laundress who went from house to house, doing washing for families who couldn't afford to employ her full-time. For poorer families, the housewife did the washing herself. This was in addition to all her other responsibilities: cooking, cleaning, child-rearing. And once a week, the enormous labor of laundry day. For these women, Monday was perhaps the hardest day of the week. The day when they would fall into bed utterly exhausted, arms aching, hands raw, knowing they would have to wake the next morning and do the ironing. Some working-class families sent their washing out to professional laundresses. These were women who took in washing to earn money. They might have a husband with irregular employment. Or they might be widows trying to support children. Or they might be unmarried women needing to support themselves. Taking in washing was one of the few ways Victorian women could earn money while staying relatively respectable. These professional laundresses often worked under difficult conditions. They might lack proper equipment. Their coppers might be old and damaged. Their working space might be cramped and poorly ventilated. But they did the work nonetheless, because they needed the income. They charged by the piece or by the pound, and the rates were not high. To make enough money to live on, they had to take in enormous quantities of washing. The physical toll was severe. Laundresses were known for their red, chapped, work-worn hands. The constant exposure to water, soap, and rough fabrics destroyed their skin. Many developed respiratory problems from working in steamy, poorly ventilated spaces. The heavy lifting, carrying water, lifting wet laundry, working with heavy irons, led to back problems and other physical ailments. But beyond the physical labor, there was a social dimension to laundry that's easy to overlook from our modern perspective. The cleanliness of a household's laundry was a visible marker of status and respectability. White linens, properly laundered, indicated a well-managed household. It showed that the family had the resources, whether money to employ servants or time to do the work themselves, to maintain standards. Dirty or dingy laundry, on the other hand, was shameful. It suggested poverty, poor management, or moral failing. Victorian society placed enormous importance on cleanliness. Cleanliness is next to godliness wasn't just a saying. It was a deeply held belief that physical cleanliness reflected moral virtue. This created pressure, particularly on women. The state of a household's laundry reflected on the woman of the house, whether she did the work herself or supervised servants who did it. Yellowed sheets, stained tablecloths, or dingy collars were marks against her. They suggested she wasn't fulfilling her domestic duties properly. For servants doing the washing, there was pressure as well. Poor results could lead to dismissal. A tablecloth scorched while ironing. A sheet that came out of the wash still stained. A collar that wasn't crisp enough. These could be serious matters. A servant with a reputation for poor laundry work would find it hard to get a good position. There was also a degree of pride in doing the work well. A skilled laundress took satisfaction in producing perfectly white linens, crisply ironed shirts, beautifully pressed tablecloths. It was a demonstration of skill and knowledge, the ability to remove difficult stains, to properly blue white linens, to iron a shirt collar to perfect stiffness. These were real skills that took time to develop. In some communities, particularly in urban working-class areas, Monday was universally understood to be washing day. You could identify Monday by the laundry hanging in yards and alleys. Entire neighborhoods would be festooned with washing. There was a communal aspect to it. Everyone doing the same hard work on the same day. Women might gather at communal water sources, public pumps or wash houses, and work together. While the labor was still difficult, there was social support, conversation, shared knowledge about removing stains or treating different fabrics, complaints about difficult employers or sympathy for particular hardships. The communal washhouse was a social space, one of the few places where working-class women could gather and talk while they worked. In contrast, the laundress working alone in a basement or washhouse, or the housewife doing her family's wash in isolation, lacked this social support. The work was just as hard, but there was no one to share it with, no one to commiserate with, no one to offer advice or assistance. It was solitary labor, done week after week, in the same hot, damp, difficult conditions. And yet, it had to be done. There was no alternative. Clothes became dirty through wear. Linens absorbed sweat and body oils. Towels became soiled with use. All of it needed to be cleaned. And the only way to clean it was through hour after hour of physical labor. This is what we've lost sight of in our modern era. We press a button and walk away. An hour later, our clothes are clean. We don't think about it much. It's automatic, easy. But for our Victorian ancestors, it was anything but easy. It was days of hard work. It was physical exhaustion. It was skill and knowledge passed down through generations. Understanding this, really understanding it, changes how we think about everyday life in the past. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't simple. It was work. Endless, exhausting, necessary work. And so, we reach the end of our journey through Victorian laundry. 3 days of labor. Monday for washing. Tuesday for ironing. Wednesday for putting away and mending. A cycle that repeated week after week, year after year. We've seen the tremendous amount of physical labor involved. The gallons of water that needed to be heated. The fires that needed constant tending. The heavy sodden fabric that needed to be lifted and wrung. The hours of standing, bending, reaching. The tools and techniques, the knowledge required. We've explored the process in detail. The sorting of laundry, the treatment of stains, the boiling of whites in strong soap, the gentler handling of colors and delicates, the vigorous scrubbing of work clothes, the multiple rinses, the wringing, the drying, the heating of irons, the careful pressing of each item, the inspection and mending, the organized storing. We've considered the physical toll, the raw red hands, the aching muscles, the exhaustion at the end of each day. The dangers too. Burns from hot water or hot irons, chemical burns from strong soap, the lung problems from working in steamy environments. And we've thought about the social dimensions. The way clean laundry marked respectability. The pressure on women to maintain standards. The pride skilled laundresses took in their work. The communal aspects in some settings. The isolation in others. All of this for something we barely think about today. Something we accomplish with almost no effort. A machine does the work. Another machine dries the clothes. An electric iron makes pressing quick and easy. What took 3 days now takes perhaps 2 hours, mostly spent doing other things while the machines run. This transformation, from days of back-breaking labor to automatic processes, is one of the great changes of the modern era. It freed enormous amounts of time. It removed a major source of physical hardship. It changed women's lives in particular, removing what had been one of the most time-consuming and difficult regular household tasks. But in gaining this convenience, we've lost something too. Not that we should want to go back to the hard labor of Victorian laundry, absolutely not. But we've lost awareness, lost understanding of how things are done, lost appreciation for the work that went into maintaining ordinary life. Our Victorian ancestors would be amazed by our washing machines, by our dryers, by our electric irons and wrinkle-free fabrics. They would find our complaints about doing laundry utterly incomprehensible. You push a button, they might say, and then you just walk away, and it's done. That's not work. That's magic. And perhaps they would be right. From their perspective, it is magic. Technology so advanced it might as well be supernatural. But for them, there was no magic. There was only work. The steady, patient, exhausting work of keeping clothing and linens clean. Work done by millions of women, week after week, throughout the Victorian era and the centuries before it. We've taken our time tonight to honor that work, to observe it in detail, to understand what it required, to appreciate the skill and effort involved. Not to glorify the past. The past was often hard and unfair, but simply to remember, to know how things were done, to recognize the labor that went into ordinary life. And now, as we conclude, perhaps you're feeling drowsy. Perhaps your mind has been soothed by the slow, methodical description of work. Perhaps the repetitive nature of the tasks we've explored has had a calming effect. That's good. That's the intention. Our history doesn't always have to be about dramatic events. Sometimes it can be about the ordinary, the everyday, the repetitive tasks that filled the hours. There's something peaceful about understanding these rhythms, about recognizing the patterns of work that structured people's lives. So rest, now. Let your mind settle. Tomorrow you might think about your washing machine a bit differently. You might feel a moment of gratitude for the convenience. You might spare a thought for all those Victorian laundry maids and housewives who did this work without machines, without running water, without any of our modern conveniences. Or you might not think about it at all. And that's fine too. The laundry will get done either way, much more easily than it once did. Good night. Sleep well, and perhaps when you wake, you'll appreciate the ease of simply pressing a button and walking away.